Today, on this special edition of the Sports Zone Unscripted, Liberty are now 3-0 in bowl games as the 2021 Lending Tree Bowl champions head back home with the new hardware. We'll recap the game and talk about an earth-shattering performance on the field by Malik Willis for his final college football game, as he will also declare for the NFL draft in the coming weeks. We'll also take a look at the new faces coming to the mountain, as we will take a look at the 2022 National Signing Day class for the Flames also coming up. And the bios for that will of course be on the Liberty Athletics website. The 18-week NFL regular season is closing in on its finale. Upcoming games and final predictions for the playoff teams coming up. And the coronavirus pandemic is about to enter 2022. In fact, it has indeed entered 2022, with a resurgence in cases across all leagues. The latest on the leagues and how they will respond to new cases coming up. And tragic news to report in the world of football, as a Giant recently passed away. From his career as a Super Bowl winning coach to his time in the broadcast booth, a simplistic view that taught football to multiple generations, which also led to the creation of the most successful sports video game in history, Madden NFL. Today, we take a look at the life and legacy of John Earl Madden. And breaking news, 10 nations now is the count. Following the United States announced their diplomatic boycott, Australia and Lithuania, New Zealand, Canada, and the nations of the United Kingdom are all joining, as well as Kosovo and Belgium, and recently Japan joining the boycott as well. My prediction on who will join next and how China has already criticized the boycott coming up. And, well, it's the most wonderful time of the year, still the most wonderful time of the year. It's bowl season. Predictions on the remaining bowl games, including the college football playoff teams, as they fight for a spot in Indy. And finally, a look at how athletes of all sports are spreading the holiday cheer with the festive Feel Good Friday. Welcome to the Sports Zone Unscripted. I'm David Henshaw. A joyous new year to everyone tuning in, and hopefully a better year than 2021. We're all hoping on that one. It is absolutely great to be back. We have new software and quicker ways to upload these videos. We also have major news involving the NFL 2021 playoff push and picture, as well as the pandemic resurging in cases. The NBA Christmas Day games being potentially organized into an in-season tournament, and the New Year's Six, almost wrapping up tonight. So we begin with the opening statement. We have personal news to report in the beginning. In our last episode, we talked about the testimony by gymnasts from Team USA Gymnastics, and a story I quoted from NBC Sports had references to recollections of sexual assault and abuse, for which I absolutely want to apologize for. I had no intention on reporting on acts of sexual assault to an unaware audience. I will desperately try to do better in the future to put warnings up in advance. For which, if you were horrified by the details and you were unaware that it was that bad, I am truly sorry for not giving you that warning in advance. Let's take a look at Flames notes. Liberty's Malik Willis accounted for 5 of the Flames' 7 touchdowns on the day, leading Liberty to a convincing 56-20 win over Eastern Michigan in the 2021 Lending Tree Bowl at Hancock Whitney Stadium, which will be the same stadium that Willis will be returning in, as he also officially accepted the invitation to the 2022 Reese Senior Bowl. Willis was named the Lending Tree Bowl MVP after finishing the game with 289 total offensive yards, with 231 passing and 58 of his own rushing. Running back TJ Green, who rushed for 88 yards and a touchdown, was named the Lending Tree Bowl offensive MVP. And safety Skylar Thomas, a grad transfer playing his only season for the Flames in 2021, was named the Lending Tree Bowl defensive MVP after returning an interception for 27 yards for a touchdown. He also had 3 assisted tackles, helping him finish the year with 55 tackles, 27 soloed, and 28 assisted. Punter Aiden Alves was named the Lending Tree Bowl Special Teams MVP after averaging 48.7 yards per punt, including his second 60-plus yard punt of the season for 63 yards. Liberty, in its third year of full FBS eligibility, earned its third straight bowl victory. The Flames, who also won the FBC Mortgage Cure Bowl in 2019 and 2020, joins Appalachian State as the only teams to win bowl games in each of the first 3 years after transitioning to FBS from the FCS. With the victory over Eastern Michigan today, the Flames have won 3 games inside the state of Alabama this season, also winning at Troy on the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, and UAB on October 2nd. Prior to the season, Liberty was 0-6 in Alabama. Liberty is the first FBS team this season to win 3 games in the same state outside of its home state of Virginia. The victory also pushes Liberty's record to 8-5 on the season. Liberty has now won 8 or more games for the 13th season in program history. Liberty, including all 3 seasons under head coach Hugh Freeze, has had multiple winning seasons, and another one to add to that. Willis finished the game completing 13 of 24 passing yards for 231 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. With his trio of passing touchdowns, Willis became the second player in program history with 25 or more passing touchdowns in a season with 27 on the board. Liberty's Stephen Calvert recorded a program 29 passing touchdowns in 2017 and finished the 17th season with 28. With his 289 total offensive yards against the Eagles, Willis finishes the season with 3,735 yards of total offense. The redshirt junior finishes the year ranked second in school history with 3,735 total offensive yards. Former Flames All-American quarterback Mike Brown finished the 2010 season with a program record of 3,810 total offensive yards. With his 9 tackles from the bowl game against the Eagles, linebacker Story Jackson became the first player since 2014 to finish the season with 100 or more tackles. Jacob Hagan had 108 stops in 2014. Jackson, another grad transfer, finished his lone year at Liberty with 102 stops. Liberty's leading receiver in the game was Kevin Shaw, who had 3 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown. The senior finishes his 39 game career with the Flames with 82 receptions for 1,364 yards and 12 touchdowns. The 2021 champions also unveiled their new signing class during National Signing Day. Let's take a look at them with this story provided by Liberty Athletics. A little bit of a brief basics of the 2022 Inferno class from Liberty. The Flames' newcomers, including 5 defensive backs, 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, an offensive lineman, a quarterback, and a running back. The Inferno 22 list hails from 11 different states, 4 from Georgia, 2 from Colorado, Louisiana, Tennessee, 1 from Alabama, Florida, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Carolina, Texas, and 1 staying in their home state of Virginia. Frieza's 4th signing class is one of the highest ranked recruiting classes in program history. The 22 class was ranked number 91 by Rivals.com and number 101 by 247sports.com. Liberty's final 2020 class, was ranked number 89th by 247 Sports, and the 2021 class was ranked number 93 by Rivals. Currently, Liberty's 17-member 2022 signing class includes 10 mid-year enrollees, 11 3-star recruits as ranked by 247 Sports, and 7 3-star recruits as listed by Rivals. Their bios are, of course, available on the Liberty Athletics website in the football news section. Now let's move on to breaking news. The push for the 2021 NFL playoffs is heating up. Let's take a look at the scores from the previous week. As this is week 17, we'll be taking a look at week 16, including 2 Christmas Day games. On Thursday night, the 49ers and Titans played. Titans had a close win, 20-17. The 49ers were closing in on them, and a chip shot field goal sealed the deal for the Titans. And moving on to the Christmas Day games, Browns and Packers. Browns, I will admit, had a close game, but the Packers ended up defeating the Browns 24-22. And the Christmas primetime game, Colts and Cards. Cardinals, not looking how they were at the beginning of the season. Definitely a different story when DeAndre Hopkins is out and when J.J. Watt is out. Kyler Murray looked completely exposed, and it definitely showed in the Colts' 22-16 thrashing, thanks to multiple rushing touchdowns by Jonathan Taylor. Lions-Falcons. Falcons won that one 20-16. That's on Sunday, as we are moving on to the Sunday games. Rams and Vikings. Vikings, they kind of kept it close, but the Rams ended up powering their way thanks to Matthew Stafford's powerful air game, ending the score at 30-23. Jaguars and Jets. Most people calling this the Tank Bowl, as it is now tank for either Matt Corral, of Ole Miss, or Bryce Young of Alabama. Who knows at this point? But the Jets ended up winning it 26-21. An old NFC East matchup before an AFC East matchup. Giants and Eagles. Eagles defeated the Giants 34-10. And of course, talking about the AFC East matchup, the Patriots did good in Buffalo under that lake effect, snow and fog and rain. But the Bills went into Gillette Stadium and just dominated the Patriots in mostly the offensive game. Mac Jones looked completely exposed. And of course, going into an opinion alert here, the players looked like they were hesitating. It was like, oh my goodness. And the refs wouldn't let them play. I mean, you had multiple holding calls on the Patriots when it's like, normally divisional matchups don't have holding calls put on them. It is ridiculous. And apparently now hopping is a taunting penalty. Look, I have so much respect for the NFL, but they gotta get their taunting penalty. Like, they have to get their officiating under control. Because taunting is a certain number of things, but I'm pretty sure staring, hopping, or just trash talking is not a form of taunting. It's like waving goodbye to the players. I mean, it's playful, but it's like, why even have a taunting penalty? Why even make the unsportsmanlike conduct? I get that players don't deserve to be degraded like that, but they're in professional sports. The NFL needs to realize that these guys are adults. They can handle taunting. Anyway, out of that opinion alert, Ravens, Bengals. Honestly, without Lamar Jackson, of course, Tracy McGrady, quarterback for the Ravens, he proved he's capable of some things, but the Bengals defeated the Ravens 41-21. And now this game, Texans Chargers. Oh boy. Chargers, I don't know what to say to them, honestly. I don't. Keenan Allen's in there. Justin Herbert's still throwing. It's like, what is going on with the Chargers now? They were so good until they got exposed by Kansas City and New England. And now they're losing to the Texans. The Texans. That is completely unbelievable there. Anyway, the final score for that was 41-29. Texans winning it in Houston. Buccaneers, Panthers. I know Cam Newton wasn't in it, but either way, I think the result was still going to be the same. 32-6, the final. Buccaneers running away with that one even before the second half began. Bears and Seahawks, that one was close. I will definitely say that one. That one was close. Bears actually shocked the world and honestly just adds another bit of pressure to the question, when will Russell Wilson say, it's time for me to leave? It's time to go away from Seattle. It's time to leave that alone now and let it implode. So we may find out when that is in the future. Final score for that, Bears winning 25-24. Excuse me. Broncos, Raiders. Once again, another close game. 4 points. Definitely close. Raiders take out the Broncos 17-13 and takes over the 7th seed playoff spot. Steelers and Chiefs. That one, albeit, was not the way I was kind of expecting. I mean, look, I get it. Big Ben is way past his prime. Juju isn't doing good. Freaking Chase Claypool is no longer the humble player that people knew him for last year. He's doing TikTok dances on the logo and everything like he's Pat Mahomes' brother. And it's like, give me a break. But anyway, apparently dancing on the logo definitely does not do any wonders for the Steelers, as that thriller at Arrowhead ended in a 36-10 victory by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Washington, Dallas. Albeit, I'm an idiot. I am an idiot. I am an idiot. I was rooting for Washington. I was hoping Washington would win. I don't like the Cowboys. I will come out and say I do not like the Cowboys. Mostly because of their fan base. I don't like it. They remind me so much of Boston fans. And I'm a Boston fan, so hey, I can say that. I know how overconfident and stuff we can be, especially when it comes to like the Celtics or the Bruins or the Revs, which albeit the Revs had an impressive season. They got the Community Shield. They did everything right, except when they faced NYCFC, who are now the 2021 MLS Cup champions. Anyway, back to the Cowboys. 56-14. I know Taylor Heineke was not there, but good grief. 56-14 was the final. Cowboys, I'm starting to see a little bit of 2016 with them. Now, will they face Aaron Rodgers again in the divisional? That remains to be seen. But for right now, they wrapped up Washington with a nice little bow day after Christmas, 56-14.
And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
And Monday Night Football, one I was not expecting. Sure, I know Taysom Hill was out, but I mean, honestly, they shut out the defending Super Bowl champions last Sunday night. And they couldn't even score a touchdown against the Miami Dolphins? You have got to be kidding me with that. It's just, it boggles my mind nowadays on that one. It's like, are these good Saints? Are these bad Saints? It's kind of like a balance now. It's kind of like, they're kind of as inconsistent as Buffalo was earlier in the season, like close to midweek, or not midweek, close to mid-season. That's how inconsistent they are now. Now, of course, let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff picture. That way, we're heading into Week 17. Those games are, of course, tomorrow. Of course, a lot of things have changed. A lot. Okay, for the AFC, first seed with the first round bye is, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. The defending AFC champions once again are back in the playoffs and are once again top seed. With the 11-4 record, they clinched their division and are hanging on to a first round bye. Currently, two who have yet make a playoff berth, the Tennessee Titans. They are currently second in the seeding. They're first in their division at 10-5. They face the Dolphins Week 17. Forgot to mention the Bengals or the Chiefs are facing the Bengals, who are also going to be who are also in the playoff seeds now. Not exactly a playoff berth yet, but getting pretty close to it. Titans, 10-5. They have yet to clinch their division, but they are coming close to it. They are first in the AFC South. Bengals facing the Chiefs, first in the North at 9-6. And first in the AFC East. Oh boy. I was desperately hoping that would be a different team. Of course, I am a Patriots fan. I thought the Patriots were still going to be first in the AFC East. but the Bills have one game hanging on them with the tie. They stay in the 4th seed. And, of course, the other team to beat the Patriots, the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor. Oh, boy. If he doesn't get an offensive MVP, I am going to lose it. I will definitely say it. He didn't have that much hype at the beginning of the season, but he is coming out in the clutch moments. He is unbelievable. But second in the AFC South, they are 5th, standing at 9-6. Patriots, they fell to 6. Also at 9-6, they're second in the East. Fell down 4 spots. Went from second to 6. It's just unbelievable there. And of course, the team that is currently standing at 8-7 and is 3rd in the East, the Miami Dolphins, they are standing with the 7th seed. But on the bubble is the LA Chargers, standing at 8-7, second in the West. The Raiders, standing at 8-7, 3rd in the West. The Ravens, 8-7, standing at 8-7, second in the North. Steelers, 7-7, and tying with the Detroit Lions, 3rd in the AFC North. And the Browns, they are 7-8. They are 4th in the North, as those two will be facing each other in Week 17. And the Broncos will have their last rematch with the Chargers. Broncos standing at 7-8 in the West, or 4th in the West.
What do we always say? Don't get eliminated!
Now, of course, the AFC is too close to call in multiple different ways. The NFC is too clear to even randomize here. First, you got the Packers. You have Mr. Bad Man Aaron Rodgers, as Stephen A. Smith says. They clinched the division at 12-3 in the NFC North. Cowboys, they are second in the conference. They pretty much taken the division, a division that everyone thought Washington or New York was going to have, looking at based off of last year's record. But the Cowboys, and man, I can't even believe I'm saying it, proved a lot of people wrong, as they have clinched the East at 11-4, the least. Sorry. Now, third spot, the Rams have not clinched the division, standing at 11-4, but they are currently first in the NFC West. They have clinched playoffs, though. And the defending Super Bowl champions, they are back once again in the playoffs, led out by Tampa Bay and Gronkowski. The defending champions take the division at 11-4 and are 4th in the seeding right now. The NFC West is really too close. You have the Cardinals, they're standing at 10-5. You have the Rams standing at 11-4. It's clear it's not a tie, but it is still close. That's why they've both clinched playoffs, but none of them have clinched the division yet. In the hunt, of course, you have number 6. You have the San Francisco 49ers trying to make their way back to playoff glory, standing at 8-7, 3rd in the West. And the Eagles standing at 8-7 and 2nd in the East. 7th seed is pretty much being fought over by the Vikings, the Falcons, the Saints, and Washington. All of them, every single one of them, standing at 7 and 8. Vikings are second in the North. Falcons second in the South. Third in the South are the Saints because the Falcons swept them. And in the NFC East is Washington.
What do we always say? Don't get eliminated.
And of course, the eliminated teams. You got the first overall pick now, Jacksonville Jaguars. Everyone was hoping Detroit. But it seems Urban Meyer did not make that much of change whatsoever. Lions, they're second. Texans are third. Giants are fourth. Jets are fifth. Seahawks are sixth. Bears are seventh. And the Panthers are eighth. This is the top 8. Currently, the top 8 teams with the picks in the 2022 NFL Draft.
Hey, guess what? It sucks to be you.
Just, wow. All right. Now that's been established, Week 17, Giants and Bears will be tomorrow at 1. Jaguars, Pats will be tomorrow at 1. Rams, Ravens will be tomorrow at 1. Buccaneers, Jets will be tomorrow at 1. Falcons and Bills will be tomorrow at 1. Chiefs and Bengals will be tomorrow at 1. Dolphins and Titans. Raiders and Colts, Eagles and Washington. That NFC East fight for the playoffs will all be tomorrow at 1. The 4:05 games will be the final AFC West matchup between the Broncos and Chargers at 4:05 p.m. And Texans-Niners will also be at 4:05 p.m. Lions and Seahawks will be 4:25 tomorrow, as well as the Cardinals-Cowboys, Panthers-Saints. Sunday will be wrapped up with Sunday Night Football with the old AFC North clash with, once again, the North champions, the Packers, taking on Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Dalvin Cook is, of course, out because of COVID. And the week wraps up with an AFC North clash for the playoffs. Monday Night Football will feature the Browns and the Steelers. Both wanting a chance at playoff glory. That'll be Monday night, 8:15 on ESPN and the accompanying networks. The NFL has rarely played on Christmas Day, but let's take a look at a league that has a Yuletide tradition dating back to 1947. But first, we take a look at grim news during a month of joy and renewed promise and hope. The coronavirus pandemic is now officially in 2022, with a resurgence of cases happening. This story from Reuters sheds light on the big explosion in cases. The National Basketball Association and National Hockey League were both forced to postpone games on Thursday as COVID-19 surged to wreak havoc on sports schedules. The Golden State Warriors contest at Denver on Thursday was postponed after the Nuggets, who have been hit by a COVID-19 outbreak in the locker room, could not field the required minimum 8 players, according to the NBA Communications Department. A total of 11 NBA games have now been postponed since December 14th. Also on Thursday, the NHL said that due to COVID-19 related issues impacting the Dallas Stars, the team's January 2nd game at the Coyotes has also been postponed. The NHL has now postponed more than 80 games this month amid the avalanche of COVID-19 cases due to Omicron. The postponements come on heels of the International Hockey Federation's decision to halt the Junior World Championships being played at Edmonton and Red Deer, Alberta, after players on several teams produced positive tests for the virus. In an effort to avoid a similar shutdown, Skate Canada announced that the January 6th to 13th Canadian National Figure Skating Championships, which will determine spots for the Beijing Olympic team, will be staged in Ottawa without any spectators. Of course, talking about the Olympics, the NHL has officially announced that none of its players, to prevent a COVID-19 surge, none of its players will participate in the 2022 Olympics. Which means you will not see Sidney Crosby on Team Canada or Alex Ovechkin on Team Russia. Excuse me. Skate Canada President Karen Butcher and CEO Deborah Armstrong said in a joint statement on Thursday, quote, "We understand this is disappointing for our fans and stakeholders. However, our priority is to preserve the competitions necessary for the selection of teams for the Olympic Winter Games and ISU's championship events." That is definitely a shocking thing to hear. In a mini segment, it's normally a time for friendly competition, but there's talk that the most wonderful time of the year will become the most heated time of the year. But first, let's take a look at the NBA Christmas Day games that happened. Of course, ESPN started up tipped off the Christmas Day games with a rematch of the Eastern Conference semifinals last year. Hawks and Knicks beating the Hawks 101-87. Head to ABC for Celtics Bucks. Celtics held it strong up until the fourth quarter. Bucks came back 117-113. Heading to the West, we have Warriors Suns 116-107 the final. Warriors taking it with the new revitalized Steph Curry carrying that new record. And of course, prime time Christmas night, while everyone was having dinner, Nets and Lakers tipped off. Nets defeated the Lake Town 122-115 in the first ever game in the Crypto.com Arena. Or Crypto.com Center, or whatever it's being called now. Honestly, if they don't nickname it the Crypt, I'm not following the Lakers anymore. Like, I get that, honestly, it's good that a name change happened because the Staples Center was where Kobe and Shaq and and Paul Gasol and all of them were. But this new name is interesting. Anyway, Jazz Mavericks, that one was on ESPN. Mavericks beat the Jazz 120-116. There's also renewed momentum for the creation of a future in-season NBA tournament among the league's 30 teams. Sources have told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, who also posted this story to ESPN.com. The NBA and National Basketball Players Association have been discussing elements of the tournament, which could become part of the calendar as soon as 2022 or 2023. The seasons of which. Negotiations have centered on an in-season tournament that would begin with pool play as part of the regular season schedule prior to teams with the best records advancing to an 8-team single elimination tournament that would culminate prior to Christmas. Sources said the proposal also would shorten the regular season from 82 to 78 games. The sides have discussed a purse of $1 million per player for the winning team, and the players could see more financial and competitive incentives before an agreement on the format. The NBA has, or sources inside the NBA has also said that the league has been motivated with the prospects of lucrative television and sponsorship revenue that it is hopeful would deliver long-term financial growth in the wake of everything that has been happening with the NBA politically. The league has had to work to make certain that the financial reductions for teams and players because of the shortened regular season would be initially be broken even, with the hope of more considerable financial gains in the long run. The success of an in-season tournament in European soccer have intrigued NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who believes that players and fans would become more enthusiastic over the period with time. The idea has been percolating for a few years, and the early success and acceptance of the play-in tournament appears to have built a bridge for the league to intensify plans for the event. The union has been talking broadly with players on the idea in team meetings, and those conversations are expected to become more serious during the NBPA's February winter meetings during All-Star Weekend in Cleveland. Previously, there's been no apprehensiveness over the idea among big market owners, especially those who generate larger home game revenue streams. According to sources, teams had expressed uneasiness on absorbing short-term losses by dropping 2 home dates to introduce the tournament, especially when those games can be worth between $2.7 million to $4 million for the most profitable big market teams. Nevertheless, Commissioner Adam Silver has been an immense champion of the idea and has shown an ability to rally ownership on his priorities. In recent months, there's been an increased confidence that the tournament is within reach of negotiations. It's a discussion for right now, but who knows? Maybe a Christmas tournament will once again make NBA Christmas Day games special again. Maybe with new logos, the special jerseys coming back, and of course a trophy to fight for. Who knows what happens with that one? We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will take a look at the life and legacy of football icon John Madden, Pro Football Hall of Famer, esports pioneer, and the most iconic voice in the broadcast booth, now in Heaven's booth, with his old friend Pat Summerall. We'll be right back with more from this special edition of the Sports Zone Unscripted. The Sports Zone Unscripted is copyrighted and contains images and logos copyrighted and trademarked by their respective leagues and organizations. No copyright infringement is intended. This episode of SZ Unscripted is presented by Power Director. Create videos for any kind of event using CyberLink Power Director app. YouTube, upload and share your own videos today. SoundCloud, upload your audio for all reasons. Music, podcasting, whatever. And Silverman Sounds. Listen to the compositions of Shane Ivers with Silverman Sounds. Music available for your personal or commercial use, royalty free. Welcome back to the Sports Zone Unscripted. We have late but still tragic news. We will, of course, talk about a giant and icon in his own category. We're going to talk about the life and the legacy of John Earl Madden. We will, of course, talk about how the rest of the sports world feels in some way. But I'm going to go into opinion alert early, especially for this story. John Mannin, to me, I never got to witness him on TV, either coaching or in the booth with the late and also tremendously great Pat Summerall. But I got to witness his play on words, his sharp demeanor, his playful attitude in the broadcast booth when he was teamed up with Al Michaels for ABC and later on NBC Sports in the beginning of NBC's first ever stint, Sunday Night Football. Of course, a lot of our generation, of course, a lot of my generation personally, knows him not only because he was a broadcaster, but also because his namesake, the namesake of a video game is his name. EA Sports introduced Madden to the video game world by asking him to a contract deal to put his likeness and his name on their new NFL video game, which would later become known as Electronic Arts' John Madden Football, and now this year known as Madden NFL 22. I can say a lot about the personal impact John Madden had on me, from my dreams of broadcasting glory to my immense knowledge of the game from a simplistic standpoint. All of that I learned from simplified teachings of the game from my coach, in a sense, John Madden. He was America's coach. But this story from ESPN's Ryan Hawksmith shows the impact Madden had across multiple generations and how the icon left the world with this final and planned goodbye. On Christmas Day, John Madden gathered his close family members and friends around his TV at 2 p.m. A documentary about him and his honestly could not believe Tall Tale Life, all Madden, was airing on Fox, and he wanted to watch it with the people he loved the most. Many of the people in the room with him, namely his wife Virginia and sons Joe and Mike, had made tremendous sacrifices over the decades as Madden rose to stardom, first as a Hall of Fame coach, then as a broadcaster, then as an esports pioneer. He'd often acknowledged that he missed more of his boys' young lives than he ever wanted, saying to friends, quote, "Virginia raised the kids." But his family also had invested deeply into Madden's success, and this documentary served as a perfect coda to their family story. They were proud of him, and Madden considered his career to be theirs too. As he sat down into his big chair in the Madden TV room, his wife and sons, their spouses, and his grandkids gathered around and watched the film. They had no idea that most of them, it was the last time they'd share with their beloved patriarch. And what a time it was. Over 90 minutes, the story of Madden's astounding life unfolded, beginning with the injured lineman who washed out as a pro football player, became a coaching legend, stunned the world by walking away 10 years later, then stunned the world even more by becoming the biggest broadcaster and video game luminary in sports history. It was a meta moment for many in the room. Much of the documentary is centered around a July shoot with Mannin in his home studio, in which he sat in a chair and watched video of his family and football luminaries rave about him. On Christmas, he loved his loved ones, then watched Madden watch himself as he watched the finished product on screen. He had a big smile on his face. In the room, the smile was even bigger. When the film ended, Madden asked every person in the room what they thought, even the kids. "I loved it," the first person said. "Loved it," the second person said. And on and on. Around the room, the vote was unanimous. Finally, everybody spoke. And after that, it was Madden's turn. Everyone waited. In his final years, Madden's hearing wasn't great, which impacted his booming voice, so he often chose his words carefully, then worked hard to broadcast them out, saying, "I loved it too, and we got to share it together." The next day, December 26th, he and Virginia celebrated their 62nd wedding anniversary together. 2 days later, he was gone. John Madden passed away at the age of 85. Family and friends spent the next 48 hours shedding some tears, but there were a lot of smiles about that Christmas Day screening. Like almost every moment in his entire life, John Madden had once again picked the perfect moment to say goodbye, and in the best way. Above all else, John Madden wanted to be known as a coach. He insisted that Hall of Fame voters evaluated him as a coach without the other stuff, in quotes, as he sometimes referred to his second, third, and fourth lives as a pioneering broadcaster, product pitchman, and esports innovator. He always said, quote, "I am a coach and a teacher, period." He'd been named Raiders coach in 1969 as a 32-year-old. The hiring was a jaw-dropper at the time, but as an assistant on the Raiders staff under John Roach, Madden was beloved and respected by what was a wild, old-school roster. One thing that served him well in the locker room and later in the booth was Madden's ability to occasionally weaponize his physical stature. He was a giant, standing at 6'4", 250 pounds or so, with a voice that carried. He was a hard-driving but gregarious personality who laughed a lot more than he yelled. But when he did yell, look out. The same way he could later tap into the ebb and flow of games as a broadcaster, he could grab his team by the face mask when he had to. His first year as the head coach of the Raiders, Ben saw some quotes in the newspaper from linebacker Phil Villapiana. The Raiders were playing San Francisco in a preseason game, and linebacker told the paper, quote, "Who cares about the 49ers? I'm more worried about organizing our team air hockey tournament." Madden marched out of his office and exploded at Villapiana in front of the entire team, saying, "Who the f do you think you are? This is professional football. I don't want to ever hear that crap like that again." It was a jarring moment for the Raiders under their new coach. And Madden later told Villapiana that yes, he had been a little mad about the air hockey quotes and their spotty team work ethic in August, but he had mostly been looking for the right time to assert himself as a young coach. And Villapiana had printed it out for him on the front page of that day's sports section. Villapiana said, "We all love John, but when he did raise his voice, which wasn't often, it had tremendous power. It shut you right up, and he always knew when to use that. Bill Piano loves the end to the air hockey story because it's such a good window into Madden's ability to read rooms. The next year, the Raiders were scuffling through the preseason, working their butts off, but fighting amongst themselves and having no fun at all that August. Madden asked Villapiano into his office and said, quote, "Hey, what's going on with the air hockey tournament? This team needs it," end quote. Madden went on to a remarkable 10-year shooting star run with the Raiders, part of an organization that eventually had 12 future Hall of Famers roaming the hallways of the old Oakland Coliseum and some parts of the LA Coliseum. Madden could deal with owner Al Davis every day and coach a veteran locker room full of legendarily hard-nosed, off-penalized Raiders. But the squeeze from both sides eventually caught up with Madden, as seen in a painful scene from the documentary, in which Madden and Davis jointly announced that he was retiring at the age of 42. He'd gotten the Raiders over the hump in 1976, finally winning a Super Bowl, and after being a perennial playoff flameout, but players worried about him constantly as seasons went on, with his big frame ballooning every November and December from the presence of "Just Win, Baby." He'd be up at 355 pounds, sometimes by the end of the year, just pounding down on Malik's for his stomach, Villapiana says. "We loved him, but we worried about him a lot." By 1979, Madden was burning out. He had become the youngest coach to ever win a Super Bowl at the time, at the age of 40, and had a 103, 32-7 record, still the best winning percentage of any coach who won 100 games. Legendary TV producer and longtime friend Bob Stenner said this, quote, "He might have been more proud of that statistics than anything else he did in his life." People forget that John was one of the brightest, most successful coaches in NFL history, and he got out at the absolute perfect time. At a news conference announcing his retirement, Virginia pulled the boys out of school to come and watch. The whole family, including Madden, cried twice before and after he emphatically told the world he would never, ever coach again, saying, quote, "I gave it everything I had. I don't have any more. It's very difficult after 10 years to stand up and say that you're retiring. I'm not resigning. I'm not quitting. I'm retiring from football coaching, and I'm never going to coach again." And he never did. A few years later, when he got a chance to try broadcasting, Madden loved it immediately. He had a natural gift at teaching and explaining football to a wide audience, and a huge part of it was his mastery of timing. He had an innate ability to navigate the time between plays without stepping on his play-by-play partner in a way that befuddles even the smartest, most charismatic ex-players and coaches. Stenner saying, quote, "New broadcasters usually try to say too much. Then you work with them and they swing the other way and become too abrupt and choppy. From the very beginning, John had an uncanny way to say the right things in just the right amount of time. And that's way harder than people realize." Stenner, of course, produced 8 Super Bowls and won 11 Emmys during his 50-year network career. He eventually landed alongside veteran Pat Summerall, the ideal quarterback to hand the ball off to Madden. A play would end and Summerall's calm, concise voice would say something like, quote, "What do you know about pulling guards, John?" And he'd clear out of the lane to let Madden cook. They did a 20-second dance back and forth every play, every Sunday for 22 years in a way that might never be replicated, although people have come really close to it. Madden became so popular that by the mid-'80s, he became the king of the commercial, promoting everything from Tinachin to Miller Lite to Ace Hardware and Outback Steakhouse, and still he said no to a lot more ads than he said yes to. Richie Zynotz, another longtime friend and TV producer, Madden's, saying, quote, "It doesn't seem like it, but John was careful about his endorsements. He did a lot of ads, but if you watch, you'll notice they were all good ads. He wouldn't just put his name on anything." End quote. That's a big reason the first Madden football game was produced in 1988, not 1984. EA Sports founder Trip Hawkins had the idea to make a video game with Madden as its front man in 1984. Met with Madden back when he was still traveling across the country by train as the famed Madden Cruiser, the bus that Madden had personally furnished and decorated for himself and friends, wasn't born until later that decade. Madden loved the idea and agreed with Hawkins that football could, would, and should be taught through a great video game. But when they were inching toward a deal, Hawkins let Madden know that he wasn't sure the technology was there yet for a full 11-on-11 game. He suggested maybe dropping some linemen so that they could squeeze 14 players 7-on-7 on the screen. Madden saying, "That's not real football." Hawkins, of course, said, "Unfortunately, the technology isn't there yet to get 22 guys on the screen at the same time." And Madden remained stern, saying, "But that's not real football." Hawkins, once again, "It'll take years to get all 22 guys on the screen." Madden replied in his abrupt but calm demeanor, "Then it will take years." And it did. The first Madden football game debuted in the summer of 1988, and it has become the most important sports game ever produced. The franchise has sold north of 130 million copies, with more than $4 billion in sales since it debuted. So I'm not saying, quote, "I'd say he was the right guy in the right place at the right time with Madden football, don't you think?" As the game took off, Madden only solidified his role as perhaps the NFL's most prized personality, even bigger than the players and teams themselves. He left CBS for Fox in '94 and helped legitimize the network, negotiating directly with Rupert Murdoch to pull off a shocking new home for him and NFC football from NBC. He eventually announced his retirement from broadcasting rights after the 2009 season. Madden was 72 years old and still the best in the business. But, once again, he picked the absolutely best time to hang up his headset, just as he hung up his coaching headset. The Steelers and Cardinals gave him a memorable walk-off night at Super Bowl 43. Santonio Holmes made a brilliant game-winning catch in the back of the end zone, and Mannin was there to call it. Center says, "Couldn't have written that better." Mannin got many requests to come back over the years. The Athletics' Richard Deitch, then at Sports Illustrated, reported about how in 2014, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, and Sunday Night Football producer Fred Gaudelli took Madden to dinner in San Francisco. They had a big idea. What if Madden came out of retirement and did one final game? They even offered to make sure it was a game near Mann's home in California. The pitch was barely in the air before Mannin swatted it down, with the answer being a hard no. Quote, he done everything you could ever do in broadcasting. Zients says he didn't need money or fame or anything like that. He didn't have a big enough ego to need one more game. John had made his mark and he was content with that. End quote. The day after Christmas, Mannin texted Zients, who had begun his career as a security guard at CBS, but Madden met him and saw something. He put him on the Madden crew. Zients learned TV. He has become one of the most prolific and influential football producers in TV, still working every weekend for Fox in 2022, with 8 Super Bowls under his belt. He also grew into a trusted confidant of Madden's. One time when he called the coach at home during an off season, and Matt was in the middle of a sentence when he said he had to go to the bathroom, said, quote, "Here, talk to June," Madden said, handing the phone to a random friend of Virginia's who was over at the house. Zients and this mystery one, June, hit it off and decided that maybe they should meet in person sometime. A few years later, they got married at Madden's house. John Madden was the best man. Zients saying, quote, "Perfect timing as always." When Zients found out Madden had died, he sat down stunned and told June he started crying. He moved from stunned to saddened, but over the next few minutes, they both landed in the same spot so many of Madden's loved ones are right now. They feel like his last days were a beautiful and grand goodbye, where he was eulogized while alive, with his family sharing it with him in a way very few people ever get. Then he celebrated his wedding anniversary with the love of his life, and then he passed away. Sounds saying, it's sort of divine, don't you think? I think it was one of the most beautiful moments of John's life. Everybody got to say how much they cared about him, and he said how much he cared about them. And then he died. Zients is talking while he's searching through his phone. He wants to find his last text message with John, saying, quote, "I have it here somewhere. I forget exactly what we said to each other, but I think it's something I'll save for the rest of my life." A few seconds later, Zients lets out a soft "oh." He's silent for a few seconds and he says, "Geez, this is really hitting me." Bennett texted Zients on Christmas Day right after the documentary aired, saying, quote, "Merry Christmas to you and yours. Thanks for everything you did to make this happen." Zients texted back, quote, "Wish it could have been longer, John. Happy anniversary." Bennett told Zients he had loved seeing Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and so many others rave about him in his career. But he had been especially fond of the sections of the documentary where Virginia and the boys had discussed how proud they were of John and of how much the sacrifices were worth it. Zients pauses for a moment before he shares the final text he has from his old friend, John Mannin. Then he takes a deep breath and reads it. "Thanks," Mannin typed. "Everyone says it could have been longer. Everyone says it should have been longer. Even in times where people didn't think it was Mannin's final moments, he found out a way to make anything better than what it currently was. Had ways of doing that. It was an impact on sports that few have had, and an impact that will continued to be felt by the people he taught either in the locker room, on TV, or in the video game. I think the best way to capture the response of the sports world would be to quote his former partner in the broadcast booth when he was at CBS Sports, Dodgers icon and Hall of Fame broadcaster Vin Scully. Scully tweeting on his account, quote, "I was saddened to hear about the passing of John Madden at age 85. One of the all-time greats, he showed me the ropes during our brief football partnership. He was always kind and delightful. He can now join his former partner, Pat Summerall, in calling Super Bowls in heaven." End quote. In heaven's booth, indeed. We're going to move on, of course, with news now of the Olympic boycott created by the United States, with several nations joining the boycott 2 months later before the opening ceremony in Beijing. The story from CNN sheds light on the historical moment. A brief warning that this story does mention descriptions and accounts that may be inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is heavily advised. Australia, Lithuania, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Japan, Belgium, Kosovo, and Canada will join the United States in a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. The leaders of the three countries said Wednesday, speaking at a news conference in Sydney. Australia Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the government would keep its official representatives at home, although Australian athletes will still attend the Games in February. Morrison said human rights abuses and issues in Xinjiang were some of the concerns raised by the Australian government in Beijing. I am very happy to talk to the Chinese government about these issues, and there has been no obstacle to that occurring on our side. But the Chinese government has consistently not taken these opportunities to meet with us about those issues. Australia was later joined Wednesday by UK and Canada, which said their diplomats and officials would not be attending the games. Saying, quote, there will be effectively a diplomatic boycott. There will be a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. No ministers are expected to attend, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson told the House of Commons. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a diplomatic boycott of the Games and said, quote, he was extremely concerned by the repeated human rights violations by the Chinese government, end quote. For months, activists have called for a boycott of the Games over human rights abuses by the Chinese government in Xinjiang and Tibet and its political crackdown in Hong Kong. Beijing has been accused by the U.S. and other Western nations of imprisoning more than 1 million Muslim-majority Uyghurs in detention centers in Xinjiang, where some former detainees claimed they were tortured, raped, or forcibly sterilized. Beijing denies the allegations, saying the camps are re-education centers designed to fight separatism and Islamist terrorism in the far western region. While the International Olympic Committee said in January that awarding a country the Games did not mean it endorsed their human rights standards, activists said giving the high-profile event to China added legitimacy to the actions of the ruling Chinese Communist Party. The moves by Australia, the UK, and Canada follow a decision Monday by the Biden administration to not send an official U.S. delegation to the Games, the first country to confirm a diplomatic boycott. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the U.S. boycott was a statement against China's, quote, ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang, end quote. U.S. athletes other than NHL players will still be allowed to compete in the Games, but the administration will not be sending government officials. The same policy applies for the 2022 Winter Paralympics scheduled for Beijing in March. Following the U.S. decision, China's foreign ministry said Tuesday it had launched solemn representation with Washington and vowed to take resolute countermeasures without saying what those measures would be. The U.S. will host the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, while the 2032 Games will take place in Brisbane, Australia. Speaking on Wednesday, Morrison said Australia is a great sporting nation and he wished the IOC all the best for the Beijing Winter Games. I very much separate the issues of the sport and the issues that are between two governments. Australia will not step back from the strong position it's had. Standing up for Australians is interest, according to Prime Minister Morrison. Let's go ahead and move on to the opinion alert. Of course, a lot of countries are still participating fully in the Olympics. France is definitely one of them, as in 2024, Paris will host the Summer Olympics, and it seems they are not looking for anything to mess with that. But here's the thing, though, and my opinion is about to become very not political, but controversial in some way. Yes, a diplomatic boycott is good for us to show the Chinese government that they cannot get away with their human rights abuses over the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. But that doesn't really do too much. That's essentially us having basically fleeing from Beijing instead of sending an official delegation there to win every medal against China, as we did in the Summer Olympics. Of course, there are still U.S. athletes going. I'm not entirely sure how many of them have said that they're not, and who specifically. But apparently, U.S. athletes are still going. Of course, other than NHL players, that also needs to be said. But it just seems like that doesn't really do too much, especially since over 90% of our exports are from China. Imports. Other way. Over 90% of our imports are from China. More than anything in this country is a sticker on it that says Made in China. From your iPhone or whatever else. It was made in China. In the Nikes I'm wearing currently, they were made in China. This is more of a symbolic gesture, but in my opinion, it's not a legitimate gesture. It's not a show of actual standing up. And I know the U.S. has a lot of interest in China. It is the most populated country in the world. But it just seems like if we are actually going to stand up against China for their abuses, we need to do it in goods. We need to do it in some way that hurts the Chinese Communist Party. I know I sound like someone on CNN or Fox News saying that, but this is my personal opinion. Until we change how we get our imports, we can't do anything. We have a gun to our heads, and pardon the analogy, but we're essentially backed into a corner. We can't do anything. That's enough for that opinion alert. Now let's move on to the 2021 bowl season, as it is in full swing. Let's recap the final scores from the prior bowls, including the college football playoff semifinals that were played yesterday. We started off on December 17th going outside of the U.S. Middle Tennessee and Toledo faced off in the Bahamas Bowl. Middle Tennessee defeated Toledo 31-24. Heading down to Orlando for the Cure Bowl. Coastal Carolina in it back-to-back times. They beat Northern Illinois 47-41. And to the Boca Raton Bowl, Western Kentucky beat Appalachian State 59-38. In the New Mexico Bowl, UTEP UTEP and Fresno State played. Fresno State beat UTEP 31-24. In the Independence Bowl, UAB beat 12th ranked BYU 31-28. And in the Lending Tree Bowl, I already mentioned this score. Liberty beat Eastern Michigan 56-20. In the in a bowl on ABC that seemed like a incredibly long late show. Of course, why wouldn't it be basically a late show with all sorts of antics and stuff to help entertain during the dull moments of the game? The first ever Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Utah State Aggies defeated Oregon State 24-13 in that. And of course, multiple things were in that, from the mascot of the bowl apparently barfing over a ledge near SoFi Stadium, to, instead of a trophy, it's a belt for the LA Bowl champions, to even Jimmy Kimmel and Guillermo from Jimmy Kimmel Live being in the broadcast booth with the ESPN announcers. It was definitely funny to see, especially when apparently, according to an interview with ESPN's Laura Rutledge, Kimmel actually had to get credentials for his own bowl game, as he is the first living person to have a bowl game named after them. And off to the NOLA Bowl, 16-ranked Louisiana defeated Marshall 36-21. And for those in the 757, which I'm currently residing, ODU and Tulsa. ODU was bowl champions back when they played in the Bahamas Bowl in 2016, 2017, if I can remember correctly. They're in the Myrtle Beach Bowl this time. Tulsa defeated ODU 30-17. And off to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Kent State, Wyoming. Wyoming defeated Kent State, Kent State 52-38. The Miami Beach Bowl featured 24th UTSA, the Roadrunners. They were undefeated, but they claimed their first loss as San Diego claimed the bowl 38-24. In the Armed Forces Bowl, after coming off their shocking defeat and the end of their 5-game stint, the Army Black Knights headed to the Armed Forces Bowl, beating Missouri 24-22. By the way, go Navy. Of course, in another bowl, North Texas and Miami, Ohio, University of Miami in Ohio defeated North Texas 27-14. In the Gasparilla Bowl, UCF defeated their Gator counterparts, University of Florida, 29-17 in Tampa Bay. And to the Camellia Bowl, Georgia State defeated Ball State 51-20. Into the Quick Lane Bowl, Western Michigan defeated Nevada 52-24. And in the Birmingham Bowl, 21-ranked Houston, soon heading to the Big 12, defeated Auburn 17-13. In the First Responder Bowl, Air Force defeated Louisville 31-28. In the Liberty Bowl, Mississippi State was almost shut out. They got into the touchdown late. They got into the end zone finally late in the fourth, but it didn't absolve them of the 34-7 thrashing by Texas Tech. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl, West Virginia and Minnesota. Minnesota defeated the Mountaineers 18-6. And in the Pinstripe Bowl, Maryland and Virginia Tech. A little side note: the bowl game in the Yankees' rival stadium, Fenway Park, home of the Boston Red Sox, that was canceled. That was featuring another Virginia rival, a rival of Virginia Tech, the University of Virginia. That game was unfortunately canceled due to an explosion of cases. But in the Pinstripe Bowl in the Bronx, Maryland defeated Virginia Tech 54-10. And of course, with that bowl, something special was with that bowl. Personally, I was not in Blacksburg when this happened, but I did see it on TV, and I did have friends that, old friends that were in Blacksburg during that time. In 2007, the mass shooting at Virginia Tech that killed 32 people. In that same year, the Yankees donated over $1 million to the tragedy fund to help them out in recovery from that tragic event. Now, no, I'm not a Hokie, I am a Flame, but I may hate the Yankees with a pride and passion because I'm a Boston fan, but when it comes to something like that, I want to personally thank the New York Yankees and, at the time when he was still alive, George Steinbrenner, who helped Virginia Tech through that uncertain and tragic time. Of course, the Hokies had pinstripe jerseys and a New York Yankees logo as one of their side decals on the helmets. Heading to the Cheez-Its Bowl, 19th ranked Clemson defeated Iowa State 20-13. And in a ranked game, number 15 Oregon lost to number 14 Oklahoma, soon to be members of the SEC, 37-32 in the Alamo Bowl. In the Duke's Mayo Bowl, one that's being criticized by ESPN's commentators liking mayonnaise so much, South Carolina defeated their Carolinian rivals of UNC 38-21. And heading to the Music City Bowl, Purdue defeated the home team, Tennessee, or at least the home state team, Tennessee, 48-45. And into Georgia, sweet Georgia, the Peach Bowl, another ranked matchup, 13 Pittsburgh, the number 11 Michigan State defeated 13 ranked Pittsburgh 31-21. And to the Las Vegas Bowl, set up in now a future location of the Super Bowl. Wisconsin defeated Arizona State 20-13. 20-13, sorry. And of course, yesterday we had the Gator Bowl. 20-ranked Wake Forest defeated Rutgers, the original college football team, 38-10. And in the Sun Bowl, Central Michigan defeated Washington State 24-21. And now we head into the college football playoff semifinals. In the Cotton Bowl Classic, featuring the first ever group of 5 teams to ever participate in the playoff, which is now in its 8th year. 4th-ranked Cincinnati lost to the defending national champion Alabama Crimson Tide, and 1st-ranked in the standings 27-6. In the Orange Bowl, Michigan had a hard time finding the end zone until the 4th quarter. When they did, it didn't absolve them of the score at the time. Georgia heads back for a chance at revenge against Alabama, with that final score being 34-11. And of course, the college football playoff national championship game will feature number 3 Georgia and number 1 Alabama. That will be Monday, January 10th at 8 p.m. on ESPN and the Megacast networks of ESPN. Will it be an Alabama repeat to 19 national championships, or will Georgia finally get its revenge in such a great year for Georgia sports, including a World Series title by the Atlanta Braves? We'll find out on January 10th. And of course, the Outback Bowl. We head over to New Year's Day, the Outback Bowl. 22-ranked Arkansas defeated Penn State 24-10. And here is the score updates for today. The Fiesta Bowl, 9th-ranked Oklahoma State has the ball currently in the 3rd quarter. Number 5 Notre Dame is beating them 28-21. And the Verba Citrus Bowl in the 4th quarter, number 17 Iowa has the ball, with number 25 Kentucky is beating them by 3, 13-10, that score. And coming up is the 108th edition of the Rose Bowl game. Number 10 Utah takes on number 7 and participant of the 2021 National Championship game, Ohio State. They'll be tonight at 5 p.m. And of course, the All-State Sugar Bowl. Number 6 Baylor takes on Matt Corral. And number 8 Mississippi. They'll be at 8:45 p.m. tonight. And the Texas Bowl will feature LSU, a former national championship winning team with that miraculous season, as they take on Kansas State. That'll be 9 p.m. on January 4th. And that will wrap up our bowls. So the Sugar Bowl will wrap up the night. And of course, the 108th Rose Bowl game presented by Capital One Venture X will be in an hour and 30 minutes, as this is currently being recorded. And finally, as saying go, to give is to receive. This pandemic has changed our viewpoint on life and has strengthened that phrase. After a Chiefs player gives a gift to a frontline nurse in Kansas City in the form of Super Bowl tickets. This story from ESPN gives a story of a frontline nurse with a heart of red and gold, as it is my New Year's resolution to give an incredible Feel Good Friday. Tyrann Mathieu is the Kansas City Chiefs nominee for the NFL's Walter Payton Man of the Year award for many reasons. His Tyrann Mathieu Foundation supports many community projects. An example of Mathieu's giving comes this week when he surprised a critical response nurse at a Kansas City area hospital with 2 tickets to this season's Super Bowl in Los Angeles. Mathieu's representatives reached out to the hospital, St. Luke's South in Overland Park, Kansas, and the recipient, Brandon Smith, receives the tickets from Mathieu after being nominated by a colleague. Saying, quote, "This team and community are very important to me," Mathieu said. Also saying, "I've had the chance to meet a lot of people in Kansas City, many who are going through difficult times. I think anytime you have an opportunity to lend your hand or even give a little bit of hope, there's always a good thing." Saying, quote, "I want to continue to make a difference in the lives of others here in Kansas City and in my hometown of New Orleans." And that is definitely a way to do it. Super Bowl tickets heading to the, now I guess, home of the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl and that barfing camel. But also will be the home of Super Bowl 56, which will be February 13th on NBC. That will do it for us here at this New Year's Day edition of the Sports Zone Unscripted. If you have not done so, go ahead and click that like button and say in the comments your opinion on SoundCloud, and click the subscribe button, like the video, and click the bell icon for any new releases. That will be on YouTube. The audio-only version is available on SoundCloud. The link to it is on the description of the video, as the link to the YouTube video will be on the SoundCloud one, and it will also be in the bios of my channels. I also have a website, davidhenshaw.weebly.com. Go there to view my past stories and Sports Zone episodes. Until next time, I'm David Henshaw. You can follow me on Twitter at davidhenshaw024 and on Instagram at davyjoehenshaw024. I hope everyone has had a happy New Year's Day. Don't miss the 108th Rose Bowl tonight at 5. And I'll see you in my studio, in quotes, at Liberty University, bringing you the world of sports in the school with the most promising athletics, with my predictions to sports for the new year, right here on the Sports Zone.